Oh, look at it. It is time for the Mobile X podcast. I am Remen X, and I am joined in my most recent exploits by Mobile Gamer.
Woo!
Should I use that word, exploits? I don't know. That's a tough topic, this
It
one.
was issues. We're not calling it that. We're calling it issues.
Yeah, I never get that fucking right. All right, well,
Daddy issues.
We're going to welcome our special guest here, Brian from Game Informer. Brian, you want to say hi, everybody? I think the community knows who you are.
Hey everyone, how's it going? And thanks so much for having me on the show. Like, it was great talking with Mobile on his YouTube channel. I guess that was 3 weeks ago now, and now it's cool to be on this show.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. I will say that your article struck such a chord with the community. I think you basically said what a lot of us were feeling at the time. And I wouldn't lie if I said that it didn't have some impact on my most recent decision to hang up the cleats, so to speak, and retire from Marvel Strike Force. But we're going to talk a lot about gaming and kind of culture and this overall arcing like premise here. But let's start with Marvel Strike Force. So let's start with. So what do you guys know about exploits?
In what context? Well, actually, before you talk about that, in your article, you were actually contemplating quitting the game a little bit, right? I mean, you were saying, is this game even fun? You kind of ended the article like, am I having fun? Do you have the feedback loop? I mean, are you still playing the game? Still playing Marvel Strike Force?
We talked about this a little bit offline. I was on a work trip last week, and as a result, I was super busy. So it was more of like, all right, I can check in like maybe 1 hour a day and like get my dailies done, and that was about it. That break, I mean, and of course that led me to miss out on a whole bunch of Kate Bishop shards and everything from not blitzing super religiously. But that break kind of helped me kind of have a little bit more fun with it this week, now that I do have more time and I'm kind of back into my normal routine. That said, like, it's still, there's a lot of problems with the game. There's a lot of things that I'm not in love with, but I am having more fun with it now than I was when I wrote this article. And yes, I'm still playing, in case you missed that.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, that's what we're trying to figure out, if you're still playing or not, because that was kind of one of the things that, was in the article. Now, there's been a lot of developments in the last week, and what was your thoughts on that Stark Armory event where the Lions had a donation? And I know that was in the middle of when you were at the conference. Did your Alliance participate in that Stark Armory event?
We tried, and everybody was donating like the 100 cores or whatever it was whenever we could. And maybe it was because I was so busy and I was going around to all these events and everything while I was out at DICE, but I don't think I fully understood how you get anything out of that event. Like, I don't think I got any orbs. Maybe I just missed it, and I was just like, because my limited time had me just clicking into like the messages and then clicking out and collecting my rewards whenever they came into my inbox. But I don't think I got much out of that event. I don't think it was usually they're pretty like clearly defined of like what you need to do to get these milestones, and like we were donating and everything, but I don't think like I got.
Oh, much. You had to spend cores. I think you had to have like almost every person in your Alliance spend like 450 cores a day or something crazy. I mean, it was a bonkers event. I mean, it wasn't just you weren't going to get anything. And actually, at the end of the day, I believe 2/3 of the player base got nothing. And I think that was the main problem with the event. Is it was designed kind of garbage from the get-go. So, Ram, are you still there? I see that you got connection issues.
It's just the video, I think.
Okay.
I should be here. Yeah, so I think that that's we kind of started with the dirty underbelly of like what's been happening behind the scenes in the community. We for years had been trying to fix this bug, this issue. I hate the word issue, man. I swear to God, I'm really that strikes such a nerve. That basically donations could count as a day looped over, right?
Right.
So people were able to double dip and get extra credit when they weren't doing the full donation, so it counted twice. And so what was happening is it definitely had some effect. The top alliances, I was in the number 3 alliance, the number 2 alliance didn't get the maximum rewards. And so it shined a light on what is kind of a lack of accountability over there. And and when I kind of, it was interesting because the blog was amazing, right? The blog showcased, hey, this is the game I wanted to play, an overarching Marvel story. Okay. The Marvel's writing a brand new storyline for Marvel Strike Force, utilizing the 4 Horsemen of Apocalypse in a brand new context that we'll be playing along with this story for a year. That also saying that they're getting rid of star requirements for the characters. There's no longer 5-star required, but we'll get into that. That's a kind of a mixed bag here.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, that there were going to be a challenge mode where you can challenge yourself and your roster and get better rewards.
Right.
But then I realized it was hidden behind another leaderboard. And with my most recent experience with leaderboards, they were corrupt.
Well, here's the thing, Brian. Like you were one of the few players for the second time around to get a Mega Red at 7 stars. And I know you were pretty excited about that, right? Like you were pretty thrilled that you were able to get Maria in time for that event, right? I mean, I remember you told me about this. Like you were actually pretty excited about that, right? How does that change things knowing that the next legendary is not going to be, these are the requirements, you get the character, but rather it's going to be based off of leaderboard. So maybe only 100 people or 500 people, only 1,000 people, and it'll be blind. How does that change things for you?
I mean, it sucks, right? Like, because nobody knows like how much. It's like the age old problem that we have with like blitzes. It's like, all right, Kate Bishop is here. Do we need, in order to like max out or like at least get like a respectable number of shards, do we need to get 21 million, or do we need to get 52 million? Like what is the number? And like there's no like set number that you need to hit in order to get to the next tier to get extra shards. And now we're making that something that's even more important to the overall game, and it rubs me the wrong way, I think, and especially when you add into the notion of exploits and people being able to kind of game the leaderboard system. It's not ideal, but at the same time, it is nice to not have those star requirements. I just wish that there was a different way around that.
Yeah, I mean, how you would you consider like a moderate spender? You spend here and there, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, as I said in my article, like I used to spend more. I would say 2021 was like my peak spending, but like near the tail end of 2021, that definitely slowed down a lot. And then 2022, I've bought like the strike pass, and then other than that, it's been like very, very little in terms of like the individual offers, just because I don't think the game has earned my money lately.
Right. And here's the rub: is what's the incentive to spend if it's going to be because they it looks like they're semi-gating this next character, this next legendary, if you will, which is going to be the Pestilence with the Scourge event, the first Horseman. It's going to be gated behind Web Warriors and or Dark Hunters. I don't know if you caught that. How is that going to feel, if you do spend money? I guess this is a rhetorical question. And knowing that, I mean, are you more inclined to spend, less inclined to spend, knowing that it's going to be tied to leaderboards, and then the idea that the leaderboards could be compromised because of issues, exploits, cheats, hacks? I mean, and I don't think they have a good track record with that at all.
No, and I mean, I think that all boils down to like all these problems actually boil down to why my article that Rem had mentioned like resonated with the community so much. I feel like this community is just a group of people that they take to the forums, they take to Reddit and social media and voice their concerns, but they don't feel heard. And I think that's why this article was one of like the biggest responses I've ever received in an article. Like I think I got like 50 or 60 emails from members of the community, like thanking me for it. And I usually try to make a point of like responding to everybody in the community, like, or anybody who emails me about my work. I always try to like thank them for reading and like answer any questions they have. But like, it just became so many emails that I couldn't respond for this particular article.
You told me this, that you never had this much response for any article you read. You had the most response on this article, the most number of emails, right?
Yeah, and I mean, all of them were positive as well. Like I've written articles and gotten some very heinous emails as well, but like not like every single one that I received for this were people like thanking me for writing this article and like agreeing with my points. And like, I mean, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I'm just trying to point out that like I think that this is indicative of a community that just doesn't feel heard by the right people. You know, like I'm not the right person either. It should be the development team. It should be the community team. It should be people who actually have the capacity to make the changes that people are wanting.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and I'm going to say something. I don't get the impression that there's going to be a blind leaderboard. Do you see that, Mobile, as they confirm that it's not going to be?
Well, I don't know if it's going to be blind, but that's what really bothers me is that a lot of these events are blind until.
No, this is going to be active like Tower, where you're going to be able to see your position, because you need to be able to do that to modify the Scourges. So throughout the event, you're going to be able to, and at least this is my impression. Throughout the event, you're going to be able to change your team and your layout, and you're going to be able to basically, you know, add Scourges to get more points. And remember, there's no heals, so the wider your roster, the more developed your roster, the better off you are. What's interesting about this is, you know, there is room for a free-to-play player with 3-star G16 on these characters to potentially climb the leaderboards. And the question is, will you get finger pointing at you because of the fact that there is no integrity in the leaderboards? But more importantly, I want to just, everybody needs to think about this. This lines up with what we've been seeing for releases. We are not getting 2- and 3-star characters by accident. Okay, they don't want to give us 5-star characters, which means they don't have to make these things farmable for a legendary character anymore. Think about that for a minute.
Yeah.
So they're about to change the game significantly, and at least they were transparent announcing the team, so you guys can build them up and get ready for, you know, whatever this is. But they've always wanted to control how many people have access to a legendary, and what better way to do it than their leaderboard?
Yeah, and let me ask you this, Brian. So as far as Marvel Strike Force compared to other games and in integrity, trust of the developer, because you know, how do you rate the situation with Marvel Strike Force? I mean, I think one of the core problems is we don't trust what they say anymore.
Yeah, and that's the problem with a game like this, is that like there isn't that trust built in with the developer. Like the community doesn't trust that like what is said in a blog post is actually going to be what's reflected in the game. Like we've seen that with like, oh, this is how this hero is going to behave when their passive goes off, and it's like, no, this is not how it works. And they say, oh, we fixed the text so that now the text is telling you what actually happens in the game. And it goes so much further beyond that in terms of like, you know, is the developer even listening to the community? And I think that once the trust is lost from the community, that's kind of like the first step towards a game really taking a downturn. And I hope that doesn't happen, because like, you know, as I said in our video that we had before mobile and the article that I wrote, it's like I do love this game, and I really think like there's a lot of great parts about this game. But when the community doesn't trust it, and the game just has all these exploits, that usually is a bad sign for where the game is heading if those issues aren't addressed, you know?
Have you seen this in another game, or issues with hacking and bannings and things like that? I mean, in other games?
I mean, you see it a lot in like multiplayer shooters, especially ones that are kind of like ghost ships where they're just abandoned and floating out at sea, and there's not really like any development effort going on with them anymore. Like older games, especially, you'll see a lot of hackers. I mean, I remember even like playing way back in the day, I played Halo 1 on PC. I didn't play it on Xbox. And I remember the hacking was so rampant in that like it completely turned me off from the experience, and it completely turned a lot of people off. And that's what ultimately drove me to buy the original Xbox, because I didn't want that. And like, but you know, especially in those early days of like the early 2000s, when like online multiplayer shooters were really coming to consoles, that was a big thing. And then like, but when hacking and exploits, especially in competitive games, run rampant, that is something that has absolutely the potential to kill a community.
Yeah, not only that, in this game, the competitive edge is earned by spending money. What's the point of spending money if it can be hacked, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's horrible.
So I think we can probably just have this conversation here. It's why I sounded the alarms. I mean, a leaderboard of that nature was concerning, knowing that it was potentially exploitable. And after me putting the brakes on my alliance and telling them, hey, don't cheat. Whatever you do, please don't cheat. And we had one guy try to, and like, oh, I just wanted to see if it worked. You moron. We wanted to stand for something better. And then watching us lose the top prizes, knowing that, you know, people were taking advantage of this was a concern. And we needed to see the impact of how many people wanted to take advantage of this type of stuff, or the impact that it would have overall. And it was shocking. I think, and, you know, so, you know, we had people in our Twitch chats, mobile, and they were saying about all these exploits that were going on behind. Oh, I do this one too, and we were like, what? And so I went down that rabbit hole, and then I just uninstalled on stream.
Wow.
You know, it was just finding out that you know, and just, I don't know if you knew this, Brian, but behind the scenes, I worked with Cerebro to in real time fix some of previous exploits, like multiple purchase exploits, stuff like that, years ago, before I was ever a content creator. And he took some great interest in it, and they did have, you know, people working on it, but it's kind of jumped the shark a little. And I think it goes back to a lack of accountability from the last, you know, public exploits that occurred with Silver Surfer and stuff like that. That being said, let's go over what's going on in Marvel Strike Force. Let me give you a kind of a list, and you guys tell me if you've heard about it, right? And you guys don't know what it is. So obviously there's the donation exploit, and that was the one. So you guys both know what that is?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's something that's been around for 3 years. It's been on and off, patched, fixed, broken, and, you know, something that Alliance leaders said they used it to help make up for people who may have been missing in action. So that one, you know, is it an issue? Is it an exploit? I think when you're using it for this type of event, it's easily labeled an exploit, right?
Well, there's couple things I want to say about that, though. One, it's something that could happen accidentally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not that people are doing it accidentally. People are definitely doing it intentionally. And secondly, it was something that developers knew about, and then my understanding is actually fixed, and then it was unfixed with a patch. So like I just, where does the majority of the blame lie on an issue like that?
We're gonna go into it. I mean, that's not. But we can do the assessment later on.
Yeah, because some things are clearly right and wrong, black and white. You know, certain types of hacks and things like that.
I blame Scopely 100% for this.
Yeah, this is a Scopely problem right here.
Let's keep moving, because we're gonna go through these.
Yeah.
War Store. You guys know that you can buy the War Store out entirely, all of it, everything.
That's a problem, seeing as how that is intentionally where they keep a lot of the most valuable stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, modified APK. Do you know? You guys know what that is?
I mean,
I'm not familiar with that.
I mean, I believe that there's a certain amount of activities in this game that are done server side, meaning your inventory levels, your character shards, your things like that, how many crystals you have purchased, and then certain things are done client side, actually on your phone when you're playing the game. The mechanic, you know, it's not, you know, you can actually put the game in airplane mode and finish your battle, but then in the battle it freezes and it pings the server. So there's things that are handled server side and things that are handled client side, and client side meter by your phone. And so what I guess you're talking about when you say about APK hacks, people are modifying the client side in some way, and then it pings the server when the battle's done, and that's that. You know what I mean? And so battles that you shouldn't win, you win, and that's not right. And I think this is a problem in other Hero Collector games as well. This is not unique to Marvel Strike Force at all. Not at all.
It's just that's the problem with the leaderboards. That's where when we see those players that beat Dark Dimension 4 and with a 100K team, that's why, right? We're gonna talk about something else. It's called an injector. You know what an injector is? Well, you know, it's sort of the same thing.
Okay.
Basically, you can give yourself anything you want You inject code into your game, you can have a 7-star Phoenix without having the unlock requirements. We've seen that in the past where people didn't have the controllers and stuff like that. They're harder to catch. Again, it's because a lot of the stuff is resolved there. The multiple purchase exploit that's happening both via the in-game right now and on the web store. The web store opened up a brand new vulnerability. We'll get into that in a little bit later. Wow,
Hello?
that's crazy. Wow, that's Jesus Christ. My phone today. There are a number of additional ones, and the list goes on and on. But the ones that are the most common are the ones that Scopely's ignored for the longest. And so we're going to talk about the last one, which is a big deal. It's a bot, and the bot has become so advanced that it can play the game for you. It can do your raids, it can do your blitzes, and it's had a negative impact on the overall allocation of shards and the like within the game. So that they definitely are altering the leaderboards, and so even blitzing has a leaderboard, and they've definitely downgraded the quality of that. And so their solution for fixing that was blitz sim, have more people involved in the pool to dilute the number of people cheating, and that's their easy solution, right?
Well, and also they did the 8 so that you could only do it 8 times a day, so that that's humanly possible, where the bot could do it every 2 hours religiously.
Yeah. So from that, I really feel like I don't know where to start, and so I put the ball in Scopely's court. I gave him all this information. People are coming forward because they didn't want me to quit the game, right? They were like, Rem, don't quit the game. I'm like, I don't know that if I come back, I don't have any integrity. Like if I come back all of a sudden, like, oh guys, it's fixed, and then it's not, I have no integrity. And I'm out thousands of dollars. I'm losing money doing this, and I just felt like somebody had to take a stand. Mobile's like, what the hell are you doing? what are you thinking? And I was like, you don't realize how big this is. And now he gets it. Do you get it now?
Well, some of it I think is, some things you talk about are problematic in other games, and they have to have tools to detect them, and they need to. The problem I have is that they really haven't taken a firm stand with banning people in the past, and the last round of bans that they did, there were industry people that got banned accidentally, and they're literally picking up the phone and calling the CEO of Marvel Strike Force and saying, "You guys are insane. I did not cheat the game, and yet you banned me." They banned the wrong people, and guess what? And then they had the gall to blame a third party for that they had faulty data, and that's the reason why they accidentally banned people. They didn't even take accountability for banning the wrong people, which is ridiculous. What do you think about all this, Brian?
Like it all comes down to it's the developer's responsibility to prevent this from happening. And the thing that is the most absurd to me is theoretically they know this is happening, and they are they believe it's happening. I know that you guys are telling them that it's happening, but also you would have to believe that they also know it's happening from their end as well. But then they introduce more leaderboards, which only plays into that hand even more, which just doesn't seem like the smart idea until this is fixed.
Exactly. It doesn't make sense to double down on this. With the leaderboards, and it just furthers the problem of why would I want to spend money or try hard in this event when there's ways around this. And to be fair, some of these things are black and white. Injecting APK hacks, bots. I think those are black and white. Not right. Even the things that are what they refer to as issues and exploits. They haven't dealt with that, and they've had ample opportunity to deal with that. So it falls back on Scopely like that, and it baffles me that they want to go down this leaderboard route even further, knowing that this is an issue.
It doesn't make sense.
I'm going to say it's because they look at it as a chance to really control who gets a legendary. They can now say 500 people are getting a legendary,
Right.
and that's been, there's been an element of the community out there that's been saying, I want legendaries to feel legendary, and their idea is, well, then let's give less people the character, and I think that's evident in their approach here. So you got to be careful what you wish for. You might just get it.
Well,
I don't think there's a problem with it being like making them feel legendary in terms of like a power level.
Mm-hmm.
Like when Phoenix first came out, she was incredible, right? Like she felt legendary, even if you did have to do the 6-star requirement instead of just the 5-star requirement. And I'm glad they've since like gotten rid of that. But like I think that they could continue to make them feel legendary, but they just haven't. I guess Omega Red feels legendary. Adam Warlock, while not like he's not Silver Surfer or Kestrel, but he feels great. And I think that they could continue to make them feel legendary, but like I guess like Apocalypse is going to be like I guess Silver Surfer Kestrel level, or maybe I mean in terms of like the power leap, it seems like that's like the direction they're going with him.
Yeah, it seems like it looks like they're going to be gating him behind his own Horseman.
Mm-hmm.
And so probably a very similar event where you have to use Horseman and something else to unlock them. And
Winter Soldier.
Oh man. So when you think about it, I played a lot of games, and I think it's probably more evident in the gaming community now, where you see a lot of hacks taking place in current titles, not just ones that are, these ghost ships per se. Call of Duty, they're aggressive anti-cheat already. There are people out there that are bypassing it. They've spent millions of dollars creating a new anti-cheat system. You think about Activision Blizzard and their titles and cheats, and they have a program that they actually install on your system. If you think about it, there's most of the games now have an anti-cheat system built in. You can't do that on a phone.
Yeah.
You can't like listen in or watch on a camera. That's something you can do on a PC that you don't have necessarily the ability to do on a phone. And that's the problem that people are facing is, we're getting more and more, PC level games on a phone without being able to have the accountability that, the downloading a program that has these anti-cheats would do, because you can't root it to the device. They don't allow you to do that because they don't want you to spy on the other programs. They don't want you to spy on your phone calls and your camera and stuff like that. That becomes that gray area where, yeah. You're laughing, Mobile, but
unless you're the government, right? I don't know. No, I mean, but here's the thing, and I asked this question to Philosopher the other day, and and I don't know if there's an answer. Is, do you think this is a problem that'll fix itself? I mean, one of the things that Brian brought up in his article is that nobody's listening, the community's not being heard. I mean, that's the feeling, right? How can they ignore this? If they're going to push a leaderboard system and people are not going to be willing to spend if they can cheat, how can they ignore this? Will this problem fix itself? I mean, is this going to, I don't know how they could ignore this. This ruins the game. It could potentially a game ender, right?
Mobile, you can say that, but the integrity of the system, when you have a pay to win and monetization element, has always been these things that could ruin a game. The problem with that is it's never been in our face as much because we've never had so much tied to leaderboards, so much tied to, comparing what, I did versus what you did versus what. So now you can see everybody around you. Mm-hmm. And, when it comes down to it, you're going to see the roster power of somebody above you on those leaderboards. You can be darn sure if they're like, 110K, you're going to be like, cheater. It's just going to be that simple. You're just going to, and so that pits the community against each other. Now, I've sent a lot of this stuff. I've communicated it in Envoy when I was a member of the channel.
We're losing you, Rem. We're losing you. We've got a robot going on. Brian, why don't you finish up? What do you think about all this?
I've been saying, an easy fix, or at least not an easy fix, but an easy remedy to the leaderboard problems is something that I've wanted them to do for years now, I guess, is that, for at least Blitz, add more milestones and make the leaderboard less important. And then, instead of blitzing my ass off to get 55 Kate Bishop shards, I can hit like maybe 30, 35 milestones, and then there's less importance placed on the leaderboards. And I think that's better for the community as well, in terms of like getting new players the ability to get more shards. But I mean, maybe they don't want that. Maybe they want you to have to turn on this game every 2 hours and go through your rotation and then see what other notifications are popping up on your screen and what other offers are popping up when you go from one screen to the next. And I think that would be something that would be a net positive for a lot of people, especially as they continue to introduce more things, and they continue to say, oh, we don't want to like take up too much of your screen time. They say that. I don't think that's actually true. I think they do
I think they want as much screen time as possible. I mean,
100%.
Yeah. They want you logging into the phone every 2 hours and constantly thinking about the game or something, right? They want you to have an investment. It's like IKEA furniture. They want you to put it together so that you like the furniture more or something, right? I have no idea.
Yeah, it's a huge time investment, a huge monetary investment if you want to, make progress in any kind of efficient manner. And I think that they could, if they did that milestone fix as they introduce these new modes and new events that are going to just continue to consume your time, I think that's a great way to kind of kill two birds with one stone.
Yeah, it's something I wanted to ask you about, Brian. And something that I hear from somebody is like, oh, I'll see a random comment on YouTube is like, oh, all you whales, Kraken spending money in the game, and feel real sad when the game shuts down in 6 months, which is just silly to me if you think about it, like because these games have a much longer shelf life than anybody in the industry ever expected. I mean, we can look at like Clash of Clans and Candy Crush. These games are almost pushing a decade long. What do you see the future of Marvel Strike Force, given that these and Marvel Strike Force is wildly successful, right? These successful games, how long they can actually last?
I mean, it is TBD pretty much, because
Yeah.
like you mentioned, Clash of Clans is like one of the first like mega hits that came out of this kind of model, and it's still going. And then like Supercell continues to put out big games like Clash Royale and everything, that they just have these long legs. And sure, people fall off. Like I played Clash Royale for year and a half, 2 years pretty regularly. Like every single day I'd log in and do like my battles and everything. And eventually I got sick of it, and I didn't like the grind that it required and like the RNG elements. And then of course I jumped to Marvel Strike Force, and it's even amplified, but I just have such love for the Marvel IP that it has held my attention this long. And it also plays into the collector in me. So I think that Marvel Strike Force still has many years, as long as the developer remains committed to it and the community doesn't leave over the outrage that it's feeling right now. Because it would be very easy for everybody to just uninstall it from their phone and then no more Marvel Strike Force, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. It would have to be something even more catastrophic than what happened over the last couple of years.
Right. And the way that I see this entire issue that Remenex is bringing to the forefront, and with the leaderboards and the exploits, cheats, hacks, all of it, right, is that I feel like the developers know that it exists, and they just want it to go away, and they don't want to deal with it. And they haven't had to deal with it because nobody's been talking about it. And they just could ignore it. I mean, they've just been sweeping it under the rug. I don't think they have I think they're going to be forced into a corner, and they're going to have to do this. And oh, boo-hoo, you can't build a new characters all constantly for next month. Maybe they have to actually spend some time and actually fix their game. I mean, what do you think? I mean, how do you see this playing out?
I mean, it would be great. I mean, and of course, there's always multiple teams working within the studio on the game. So, like, the character designers and everything are not necessarily going to be the ones that would actually fix the game. However, those characters, theoretically or hypothetically, do have to be play tested. So it would be nice if they just kind of announced, like, I think it would also do wonders for the community if they announced, we're not going to release any characters in the month of April or the month of May or whenever they decide to do it, and we're just going to focus on taking care of all the bugs and the things in this game. The weekly events, the flash events, they'll still happen. but we're just not going to implement any new characters or like
can't do
new
that.
events into the game until we fix some of the problems that you guys have been talking about. And I would love it if that happened. I don't think it's going to happen because they want you continually on that hamster wheel of getting the new characters, and they don't want anybody to ever really be able to catch up, because once you catch up, then you're not constantly dropping cores to refresh your campaign energy to farm Captain Sam or whatever. Like the only character I have to farm right now is Moondragon from a campaign node.
Me too.
And the only store character, I have all of my store characters maxed out aside from Cloak. So it's like I'm just accumulating this currency now, and they don't want that.
Well, the cardinal sin of the game is to keep. Is they're not going to let people get bored. Like you have to have something to buy, something to chase, to something to get. They're always going to keep something out, and that's why they have these bottlenecks on bottlenecks. Is because when people do quit the game when they're bored, I have nothing. I've got everything in the game. I'm done. Right. But if you're not, if we're chasing something, we're going to keep going. Rem, are you back? How's your connection?
I should be better.
Okay, there we go.
I shut everything else down here, but
Crystal clear.
Crystal clear.
What I'll say is, it's a tough stance. Bringing it to the forefront. I have people actively trying to dox me, DDoS me. There's elements in the community that don't want to have this information out there. It's bad. What happens is, I have a lot of money invested in this game, right? And I'm walking away from it because I'm trying to fight for something bigger. But I will tell you that I put a lot of this back in Scopely's court, and they are talking to me. They are asking for information. They are getting information, and they're working to try to figure out this stuff out. So I don't think they're ignoring it. However, I still am waiting to hear a big, our stance on cheaters.
Mm-hmm.
We will not tolerate this. If the leaderboards are exploited, you will be made whole within 72 hours. That they need to be able to not only have a plan for, how to address cheaters, but also how to make the community whole so that we know how they're going to respond instead of guessing, right? So let's give you, for instance, whenever there was a Red Star issue mobile, how pissed off we were about it. People were waiting 5 to 6 weeks before they got their compensation for Red Stars after the character was already out and had its peak and its value. And so what happened was that they had to buy more Red Stars. And so they can't just kick the ball down the field and try to put it on the players to make up for whatever ground it works. They need to put a plan in place. It needs to be very clear, and they need to have they need a better record at addressing cheats. Period. End of story.
Yeah, I mean, they could start by not banning the wrong players. If they well, right now, I think the first thing that they got to do is they have to have a public statement saying, if you do X, this is what's going to happen. And then it needs to be backed up, and they actually need to do it, because I feel like we don't trust what they're going to say, but they need to say it, and then they need to do it. And then they also need to uphold their side of the street, which is make the game, fix the things that they can. A lot of these exploits can be fixed, and they just need to fix them. It's not that complicated.
I told them before they announced this event.
I know. Like they should have pulled the event.
They should have just pulled it and said, "Sorry, we'll fix it. Here's the rewards. Here's everybody get the rewards for the top prize. Whatever." They allowed it to persist, and they just, and that's the problem. This team isn't proactive. There's no proactive portion about this. You give them if you can tell them what's coming next, they're caught flat-footed every single time.
Yeah, it feels like we're missing the sense that they have strong, competent, ethical leadership. I have no confidence that they have those three qualities at all.
Well, they are humble, and they are. I mean,
they're their harshest critic.
Yeah, they're humble and they are smart, right? That's in the same sentence, you can say those two things, right?
So, Brian, let me ask you, what would restore confidence? Like, what would you think would be the first step, or what would go a long way to restoring confidence in the game?
I think what you're saying is accurate. Communication, that's such a key thing in any relationship, especially one that they are wanting you to stick around and continue to play and continue to spend money. And if, like we've said over and over again, if you don't feel like your money is going to, or your time for that matter, is going to really make a difference when there are people who are exploiting and cheating, then what's the point? So if they can communicate that they're going to address these things, that is a huge step in the right direction. And then, of course, you have to follow up that communication and those words with action, or else you really lose their trust. If you're like, we're going to do these things, and then they don't actually do those things, that's when the problems really come to a head, because then everybody has the same decision that Reminex made to make for themselves, right?
Right. Let me ask you another question. There was a Reddit post where it kind of was a sad Reddit post. It says boycotts don't work, spending strikes don't work, downvoting the iTunes store doesn't work. Please contact journalists like you to write more articles. And then they also said we really need to get a hold of Bill Roseman. You're familiar with Bill Roseman, I'm sure. And we need to bother Bill Roseman at Marvel. Do you think that would work? Do you think?
I mean, I'd never want to encourage people to harass anybody or like really like just pester him. Like, I think that's not the way to go.
Well, they didn't put it like that. They said, please share with this guy their experience and how it's damaged the Marvel brand name and so on and so on. I mean, do you think that would work, or does it matter? Or?
I mean, he is definitely somebody who oversees the entire Marvel gaming operation. So he's a great person who would have the power to at least kind of poke them and be like, hey, what's going on here? I mean, I don't know like what kind of oversight he has with each individual game. But I have interviewed him a few times. He's very knowledgeable about everything Marvel gaming. And I don't know like what he would actually have like in terms of like already in his view. Like, does he know about like the way the community is reacting right now, or is he completely oblivious because he has so much on his plate? Because there's at any given time like 20 or 25 Marvel games in development. So like, I don't know how much he is aware of it or already, or if this would all be news to him. And he would be the guy that would have the power to do that. But again, like I don't want people like, I would never encourage people to like pester him and like just bug him constantly. But yes, he would probably be somebody who would have some say in it.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I mean, I think Marvel Strike Force is a wildly successful for them. Like, if you think about like if you spend $1 Marvel Strike Force, like 30 cents of it goes to iTunes, and then another 20 or 30 cents of it goes to Marvel/Disney, and then there's 40 cents left over to pay your employees. I mean, they're probably making Marvel and Disney and iTunes is probably making more off of this game than the developers themselves.
Well, that's why I think they introduced that web store, is because that gives them a bigger piece of the pie. That gets rid of the iTunes cut if you buy directly from them, and then they can deliver the things directly to your inbox. Which, by the way, I'm a fan of the web store. I don't like having to leave the app to like check the stuff. Like I forgot to do it yesterday, and then I went today, and I was like, oh, I have like 7 milestones to claim. But like that was awesome because those web launch orbs are incredible. Let me level up my Kestrel, which was great. But I think that's actually a net positive. But that is the reason for that store, 100%, is so that they can cut out the middleman. Like we saw Fortnite try to do it within the client itself.
Right.
And that resulted in this huge lawsuit and like Fortnite being delisted from the Apple Store or the App Store on iOS. And so Marvel Strike Force, I think, learned its lesson from Fortnite and decided just to have a separate store that you could link your account to. They would still be able to cut out the middleman of Apple or Google, and then they can deliver your stuff directly to your inbox without having to go through Apple Pay or whatever Google currency uses.
But I want that 30% discount. They didn't discount anything.
That Silver Surfer offer was pretty great, but yeah, other than that, like that's the only thing I've bought through the web so far. But those milestones are great.
Yeah, but that could be temporary.
Right there.
It could be temporary. And yes, there is a bang for your buck, but I don't think that this adds up to 20 or 30%. I mean, it does add up to something. if you're a spender, but it's not that much of an incentive. Basically, at the end of the day, Marvel Strike Force is just pocketing that extra 30% they're not giving to Google or Amazon or iTunes for that matter. So it's and I think you can actually thank Epic Fortnite for this. I think this is a direct result of that judgment that was issued, which both sides lost, both sides won, depending on how you looked at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this is a direct response to that, and a lesson that they learned. Like, oh, we could do this, but we just can't do it within the client itself, or else we're gonna get in trouble with Apple or Google.
Oh, and Genshin Impact too, by the way. Genshin Impact, because it was a mobile launch as well, basically allowed companies to see how to do this. Basically, if it had a PC client or was accessible via this way, there were loopholes that allowed them to get the currency on there, and they shared the same currency across platforms. So there's a lot to this. I don't think you ever see the 30% mobile. I hate to break it to you.
No, they're going to keep that money. I mean, they didn't build this web store for nothing. They made it so they could make more money. And I think it's been one of the things that really frustrates me about mobile games in general is that I had this very logical idea that if they lowered their prices, more people would buy this stuff. I mean, it's a logical idea, right?
You're
but
wrong.
Absolutely.
But
for some reason, I've been told not by Scopely, but by other gaming developers that it really doesn't work that way. People are very much free to play only, or I buy everything only. And so by lowering prices, they don't actually make more money. They just, because it doesn't incentivize the free to play players to spend more. I mean, which is kind of frustrating. So that's why they're not giving any of that 20 or 30% back on these. They're still going to try to sell this $60 Elite 6 offer right here on the way when you log on. I mean, which is outrageous, right? I mean, that's the cost of a full title elsewhere. I don't know. I mean, go ahead.
It's so you got to remember there's a couple pieces of the puzzle, right? So there's we talk about 5% of most games are funded by, or the games are funded by 5% of the populace in most game titles.
Yeah.
And I think that's true here. I think people may advocate for different numbers across the industry, but from our conversation with the industry now, we can see that it's different, and we know what to expect. More importantly, there's a thing called conversion, right? And what conversion is what you might think it is. It's basically when they turn somebody who would normally not have ever spent a dime into buying something.
Mm-hmm.
What that does is it increases the lifetime spend of a player, right? And so it basically increases their bottom line for potential investors and the like. And you got to remember, these guys are beholden to investors. I mean, this game, when it was probably pitched a while ago, had a series of investors that say, hey, here's a Marvel game, invest in it. We're going to make it look like the Star Wars Galaxy Heroes game that was wildly popular at the time. And they've taken a couple of different concepts, and they definitely didn't just mirror that game. The way the stars work and everything like that here. They didn't go with the Galactic Legends per se, although we might see that from the horse people. But that's not. They definitely made things more viable, lower stars, and changed the way that you access stuff. And they also made gear like mobile. You said that if you buy a character in Star Wars Galaxy Heroes, right? Like if you bought a character, you can buy the gear for that like it came with gear.
No, absolutely not. Yeah.
All right.
Dragon Champions, baby, but not Galaxy of Heroes. No.
Yeah. Okay. So Galaxy. So same problem. They all the gear is still being.
No,
held.
It was even worse over there in Galaxy of Heroes because unless you 7-starred the character, you were capped at how high of the gear you could go. So like you basically, unless you 7-starred the character was not playable in a competitive environment, which is something that has not happened in Marvel Strike Force.
Yeah, and which I think they're leaning even a different way when they're talking about the Pestilence events, which I think is interesting. But we have to see how if they can't right the ship from the perspective of exploits, it doesn't matter what anything costs; it's worthless.
So this is the question: is there anything the community do, Brian? Do you think there's anything that people can do in our day-to-day activates to like the average player? Is there anything that they can do to help this problem? I mean, I don't know what to do. I mean, that's I think what most people are asking right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a helpless feeling, right? Like
Right.
that's what a lot of people are feeling right now in the community. And as somebody who plays it every single day, logs on probably 6 or 7 or even 8 times throughout the day just to like see what's going on in my alliance or in the game or whatever, or to blitz. Like it feels like there's nothing we can do but hope for the best, right? And that's the unfortunate reality of a lot of these games, because like they said, like boycotts aren't working, not spending anything isn't working, spending strikes, and I was gonna just post that article that I wrote as a Twitter rant. I was like, I want to do something a little bit more official, because like I have more fleshed out thoughts than I could put into, like, even if I just did like 20 tweets, it would not be enough, and then it would just annoy my entire timeline. So I wanted to do this as an article, and I guess it resonated with people because, again, they just don't feel heard, and hopefully this does it did at least a little bit of good for the community, because that's what I want. I ultimately want this to be a better game for everyone. I want it to be a better game for me selfishly, but like I want everybody in this community to have a better game, and that's hopefully what ends up happening, because like it seems like people's level of discontent is at an all-time high right now, and I thought that was going to peak last year. I was optimistic coming into 2022, and unfortunately, it hasn't. Again, I like that. I like the 2022 roadmap blog post mostly, but I think that like we have to see actions backing up those words, like I said before.
Yeah, I expected nothing, and I was still disappointed. What do you think, Reb? What do you want to think what do you got to think about wrapping this up? What are your thoughts?
The worst part about it is like the Marvel Strike Force is shaping to be the game that I wanted to play, right? Like from a story element, from a content element, from a competitive standpoint, with the new game mode taking shape in Cosmic Crucible, and the idea that an overarching story that we get to experience together. But I couldn't just sit there and watch people who had faith that if they did the right thing that they were going to get rewarded, basically get slapped in the face. It was definitely, and then following up, I mean, if I didn't quit from the event, if I was hanging on by a thread, the compensation sure would have put me over the edge, right? The compensation that went out afterwards, my God, what an absolute insult. I think that's probably even beyond a problem that I think they don't get it, and I'm hoping that the information. A lot of people are coming forward with these exploits. I hope they get on it, but they can't say that they're not aware of it anymore. They can't pretend on a Reddit post it's the first time they've heard of it and they're going to forward it to the engineers.
Yeah, that's a problem. All right, I mean, I'm a little worried about the game as far as if they don't take a stand and more importantly some action. What's the point in pursuing these characters and doing the leaderboard? When people can cheat their way to the top or exploit their way to the top. I mean, there's no they're apparently they're okay with exploits. They wouldn't even call them exploits. They'll call them issues, right? Kind of a sad day. What do you think, Brian? Before we're going to wrap this up here pretty soon.
Yeah, I think that like the only thing players really have at their disposal is their wallet and their time. Like if you're not enjoying the game, then don't play it as much or don't spend money on it, which is easier said than done when they continually keep giving you the carrot and they want you to keep playing or keep spending in order to reach the carrot. And then as soon as you get the carrot, they introduce another carrot, or even before you get that carrot, they give you another carrot down the road. And I think that ultimately this game has so much potential. And my biggest problem, the thing that ultimately led me to write the article that so many people reached out about, was that I don't have a problem when there's free to play or microtransactions or anything like that. But the problem with Marvel Strike Force is that it is the game design itself is so heavily influenced by the developers want for players to spend money, right? Mm-hmm. Like if look at Halo Infinite, look at Fortnite, you can get the exact core experience that everybody else is getting without spending a dime. But if you want to spend money, then there's cool cosmetics or cool items that only you can get if you drop the $10 or $20 on a battle pass. And the core gameplay is not compromised in any way at all. And both those games are free to play games, AAA free to play games. And Marvel Strike Force has a lot of potential, but its game design has become increasingly influenced by driving people towards microtransactions and eating up as much of their time as possible. And that's just a step in the wrong direction, at least for making it a good game. Now,
I believe it was engineered that way. Very
Yeah,
deliberately from the start.
Obviously, right? They're showing their cards more and more every passing month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm sure they basically pitched it that way. It's like, hey, we're gonna make some money on Marvel.
They certainly have too. Like, which is the big argument that I make in the article at one point is when they're touting how much money they make, and we don't have the most up-to-date numbers, but when they're touting how much money they make, the absolute least the community should be able to expect is a high-quality product, and we just haven't had that for years now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Bugs and glitches should be at a minimum. I mean, no game is bug free, but the needless amount, stuff that looks like it'd be so easy to fix, needless, wrong art on offers. I mean, how hard is that to prevent? I mean, just someone had to proofread it, right? It's horrible. It's not. We can't even get that. All right. Anything you want to say before we wrap it up, Rem?
No, that's it. Thanks for joining us here on the most recent episode of the Mobile X Podcast. Brian, thanks as always for being an exemplary voice in our community here. I haven't left the community. I may have left the game. People are trying to get it to come back, and I think that's actually a lot of people are trying to get it to come back. Who were victims of cheat. That's what they're saying. They fell victims of cheat. Right?
I'll translate that. Rebedex says you're awesome, is what he's saying. I don't know if you could understand that.
Was it robotic again?
Oh, yeah, we're having a robot, man.
I think you're back now, though.
I got some issues here. I'll resolve it.
All right. What I think he was trying to say is thank you, Brian, for coming out here. Thank you for speaking up for everybody else, especially with that article. That was a big deal.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And of course, thanks to both of you for continuing to create content. It's always great to log on to YouTube or open up the YouTube app and see the stuff you guys are putting out. And I always enjoy checking out your videos.
All right. That'll do it. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Keep on gaming.